Good.
All right, welcome back, Powers on Sports Podcast. Now it's time for our second segment of the year, the coach and the kicker. Anthony Blevins, former NFL assistant coach, UFL champion with the Birmingham Stallions, joins us. We are 2 weeks in the books in the National Football League. Got some college football stuff going on. Mr. Blevins, welcome back to the podcast, sir.
Man, appreciate it, Jason. Glad you had me back, man. It's been good. It's been fun. Can't wait to get dive into these topics and talk about a little NFL football.
What a wild week last week was, man. All these upsets and teams that were big underdogs and teams 0-2 that we never thought would be 0-2. Just give me an initial thought after 2 weeks of games.
Man, it's been fun. I mean, it's really been good to kind of for me to sit back, watch games, see how people are playing, see how people are coaching, and see something different. I've been coaching for the last 10 years in the NFL, so I never get this opportunity. So when I'm going back and watching tape, it feels like I'm at work. So to actually sit down on a Sunday, watch a game live has really been fun. Lot of good storylines. You talked about teams being 0-2. Well, you got Baltimore. In Baltimore, I mean, they really could be 2-0 at this
Yeah.
point. The last time Baltimore started 0-2 was 2015. What did they finish the season?
Didn't make the playoffs.
Didn't make the playoffs. They finished 5-11. So there's a little bit of concern for Baltimore over the next couple of weeks. They got Dallas. They're at Dallas. They go to Buffalo,
Yeah.
and then they're at Cincinnati. So they've got
Conceivably
some tough games
0-5.
there.
Conceivably, you could be 0-5.
They could be 0-5, like right out of the gate. Now, I don't have so much concern about Baltimore because of the veteran leadership, because of
Right.
Lamar Jackson, because of Coach Harbaugh. I think they'll be all right, but they could conceivably be 0-5. They've got Dallas coming up, who Dallas just got spanked by
New
New
Orleans.
Orleans. Got absolutely spanked. So they'll get Dallas's best this weekend here in Dallas at AT&T Stadium. I'm
Yep.
looking forward to that game. I think that's going to be a really good game. Then you got Cincinnati. Cincinnati's interesting. And again, I don't worry about Cincinnati. Cincinnati's been there before. The last 2 years they started 0-2. The year before that, in 2022, they went one and started 1-1 and actually went to the Super Bowl. But each of those years when they started 0-2, they made it to the playoffs. So they've been there before. There'll be no panic in that locker room. They'll be good to go. Cincinnati's going to be great. They've got all the things. Once they get Jamar Chase back into the lineup, once they get Jamar Chase back into the lineup
T. Higgins. T. Higgins back
and
in the
get him
mix.
playing good, get him the timing that he needs, they'll be fine. The one thing about Cincinnati that I don't like is they don't play in their guys in the preseason. So to me, that's why they start off so slow. They start off 0-2, 0-3 going into the season, where if they play their guys, they get that timing between the quarterback receivers. They can kind of see some things. I think they would definitely start off faster because when you start playing games, there's things that you can't anticipate in practice. You can't anticipate adrenaline. So now you got your adrenaline going. You're going to be a little bit faster. You're going to be a little bit more methodical. It's going to be a little bit more physical. You're going to see things a little bit faster. So that adrenaline kicks in. The game, you play the game, and it's just totally different. The speed of it is just totally different. And I think that's why Cincinnati gets off to such a slow start year in and year out, is because they don't play their starters during preseason, and they don't give them a chance to have that game speed and be in tune once week one hits.
And boy, you saw Sunday in Kansas City the 4th and 16 pass interference call. You're a former DB. It's a call you had to make. I mean, the kid went through his back early, but just boy, you have Mahomes at 4th and 16. Again, I always wonder, why do you rush three guys when it's 4th and 16 as opposed to maybe blitz and try to get the ball out of his hand on a
Mhm.
4th and 16 kind of play? But boy, you give Mahomes time. He doesn't always complete the pass, but he always throws it in the vicinity where you could get the pass interference, stuff like that. Your
Yeah.
thoughts there?
I mean, it was absolutely the right call. I mean, it was no doubt that it was DPI. It was the right call. I tend to disagree with you on blitzing. I'm kind of
Okay.
50-50. I think you kind of play the situation. Sometimes you blitz, and then because people look at your numbers, okay, in this situation they always blitz, or in this situation they always go zone. When I was with Todd Bowles, I used to talk to him a lot about we would play a game, and then on in 2 minutes he would blitz all the time. He would blitz every snap. Then the next week he come back and play zone every snap. And I asked him one day, he's like, Todd, why'd you blitz last week and then you played zone coverage this week? He says, well, everybody knows what we're going to do, so they're going to
Right.
practice all the zone coverage this week.
Right.
And then we come up and show man and press and do different things. It keeps them off balance. They don't know what to do. So that's why I kind of disagree with you on that.
I got you.
I know during that time when I was in Arizona, we won in a 3-year span. We won the most close games, one-score games, than anybody in the NFL during that particular point in time. So that's where I kind of disagree with you on that.
And Bowles did that this week in Detroit. He played a ton of zone at the end of the game, didn't blitz,
Yeah,
dropped 8 in coverage against Goff, and the Bucks,
yeah.
had a huge win in Detroit. Let's talk about being in a coaching staff room when you're 0-2. You know what the statistics are. If you go to 0-3, the percentages say, under, probably 5% or less that you make the playoffs. What is the mindset of a team, especially when you think you're a good team, a Baltimore, a Cincinnati, maybe even a Jacksonville, that you're 0-2, knowing how desperate this week is?
Well, to me, this is what I believe. You double down on the fundamentals. You double down on the techniques, the blocking. You get back to the core values of what you believe as a football team. And then you stress, you don't worry about being 0-2. You don't worry about being 0-3. You just try to go 1-0. You just try to win this week, and this week is all that matters. But it starts with doubling down on the fundamentals, on the techniques, eliminating mistakes, eliminating turnovers, penalties, things, whatever it is that's on the menu. You eliminate those things and you narrow the focus. You don't talk about the big picture. You don't talk about if we don't win this week, we're not going to the Super Bowl. You don't talk about we're not going to the playoffs. You talk about winning this week, and you do that by talking about the techniques, the fundamentals, that the blocking, the tackling. That's where it starts at.
In film study, do you show more good plays or do you show more the things that we need to fix to get their
I think that
confidence up?
I believe there's a balance in that. Early in the week, you're coming off a loss, you start showing the things, guys, we're this close. If we eliminate this penalty, we eliminate these plays, we eliminate the offsides, the turnovers, we can win this ball game. And then later in the week, you start talking about the positive mindset, start showing them things that you've done well. I think that's where it starts at. So I think there's a balance in that of early in the week, you show them some of the things that you did wrong that's correctable. And then later in the week, you start showing all the positive plays. So you start having the positive visualization of doing things right and winning the game on Sunday.
Talk about, we saw what happened in Carolina. Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick, gets basically 18, 19 games, and he's been told he's getting benched. And I don't know if they're going back to him. Who knows what's going to happen there? Coaching staff wise, as far as talking through these kind of decisions, I'm sure these staffs talk about, and it may not just be the quarterback, it's any position making a
Mhm.
change. How do those, when you make a personnel change, when you decide, hey, we're going to take out the starting nickel and put another guy in, or starter, whatever position, how do those conversations go within the coaching staff? And is it more the head coach just saying this is what we're going to do, or does he lean on the position coach to say, hey, what do you think, Anthony? What do you really think the next guy's ready enough? How do those conversations happen?
Well, those conversations really start from higher up. Starts with the GM, starts with the head coach. They start discussing it, and then it trickles down to the coordinator, to the position coach, and everybody has a little bit of feedback in most organizations. You get a little bit of feedback, and that's where it starts at. But I really think what they're doing in Carolina is really could be a good thing for Bryce, because right now Bryce is broken. Like
Yes.
there's no doubt he is
Zero
broken.
confidence.
Zero confidence. You can see it on his face. I mean, he's almost in tears out there on the field. And it's not Bryce's fault all the way his fault.
Right.
The the Carolina Panthers have epically failed him. They have failed to put a competitive team around him that can compete.
Right.
And they can't protect him. They have in 18 games that he's played, they have not protected him. He's probably the most sacked quarterback in the NFL during that time. He's beat up, he's broken, and then he's a little guy on top of it that doesn't have elite athleticism like a Kyler Murray.
Right.
Kyler Murray is 5'9", I believe, but he has a elite athleticism. He
Yeah.
can run around, make plays, extend plays. Bryce is athletic, but he's not as athletic as Kyler.
Right.
He can scramble
He
where
scrambles
Kyler,
to throw where Kyler can scramble to run.
correct, correct. And Kyler can beat you with his legs. Bryce cannot. Bryce can pick up a third down, a 3rd and 10, something like that, but he's not going to beat you with his legs. You'll
Right.
let him run and scramble. You won't worry about that as a defensive coordinator. Kyler, you're going to do something to stop him from running. You have to take into account that he can run and he can beat you with his legs. But it's been an epic failure in Carolina ever since Bryce got there. Like they have no, they all their players are gone. They traded Brian Burns in all season. Deontay Jackson went to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
All their best players are gone. And their best attribute was their defense. Now their defense, they gave up 47 to New Orleans week 1, gave up 26 to the Chargers last week, and then they're not scoring points on top of it. It's an epic failure from top to bottom in Carolina.
Do you see a scenario where somebody and I threw this out to a couple friends of mine? If I'm a team like the Miami Dolphins with what they're facing with Tua, do you tell the Carolina Panthers, we'll give you a 3rd-round pick for Bryce Young? What do you think? Because I think if you get Bryce Young in a situation like Miami with some weapons, a coach that really instills offensive confidence, give him a month or so to learn that offense, I think a guy like Bryce Young would be a perfect insurance policy for we don't know what the situation with Tua is going to be long term. I mean, a place like Miami with Bryce Young, a smaller guy, Tua is not the biggest guy. I think Miami would be a beautiful spot for a guy like Bryce Young to land if the Carolina Panthers are ready to pull the plug.
Well, first, I don't think Carolina will pull the plug on him just yet. I think the jury is still out on Bryce, but Miami would be a great place for him. But I don't think he's going to be ready to play this year. I think he is completely broken. I think it's going to take psychologists, a head coach like Mike
Okay.
McDaniel to instill some confidence in him. But I think it's going to take some time. He is not ready to play in the NFL at this particular moment, nor will he be ready to play by the end of the year.
When you are dealing with a guy, whether it's forget the quarterback, just a DB in general, a guy that you know has the ability, has the athleticism, has the smarts, how do you as a coach when he's struggling on the field and he's trying his hardest, but boy, he is just overthinking it. How do you get a guy out of that mold of, man, come on, we got to get the confidence back? How do you get a guy's confidence back when you can just tell he's mentally just so strained?
You have to talk to him about the positive things that he's doing and make it about the positive, not so much about the negatives. What is when a guy's beat down, he's distrodden. You have to make it about the positive. You have to try to install confidence in him, make him see the good in the way he's playing, and then continue to build him. It's all a mindset. You have to build up the mindset. You have to build up the person in order to get what you want. The talent is there. But if you go off every time he gets beat on a route or every time there's a pick or something, every time he makes a misstep, you're going to lose that guy. And probably if it gets to that point, you've already lost him. So you have to do things and talk to him about the positive things that he's doing in order to get him back. And then he has to have some success on Sunday. He has to have success, and that starts reiterating the positive points that you're telling him on Sunday.
Let's go to another situation, which is kind of going down that road too, because of his actions on the field. Let's go to Tennessee. Will Levis, 2 weeks in a row, just 2 disastrous turnover situations. You know, the one Sunday this last week was even worse than the one in Chicago with the ball flip. You saw Brian Callahan, basically dog cuss him as he's walking off the field, giving him the business. You coached with a guy, Bruce Arians, that was very honest, very direct, and that was right out of the Bruce Arians what he would have said in a situation like that.
Yeah.
Talk about just again what coach said to Will Levis, and sometimes it's needed, and I think that was a very warranted comment.
Well, how Will Levis is playing, he's costing the Tennessee Titans games. 2 weeks in a row, they've been in control of the game, and those are pick 6 against Chicago. This week was even worse than the pick 6. Like, you turned a bad play into a nightmarish play.
Right.
They're up 7 right before the half. I think it's actually 8 minutes left in the game, or 8 minutes left in the half. I'm sorry.
Right.
And
but they were
they're getting ready to
controlling
go
the
up at
game.
least
That's
10.
the thing. They were controlling the game.
They were controlling the game all the way through. And then he goes and instead of taking a sack, and it's a bad play, but he turned a bad play into a nightmare
Right.
where now it's a turnover. The Jets get the ball. I think the Jets even go down and score
I
on
think
that.
they scored.
And
Yep.
now it's 7-7 as opposed to being a two-score game. At least it's 10-0 at that particular point in time.
Yep.
Will Levis has played 10 games in the NFL. He knows better. Plus, all the games he's played in college, he knows better. That's not on any coach. That's not on any trainer. That's on Will.
Yep.
Will knows better. He has to be better. If the Tennessee Titans are going to win football games, he's got to be better for them. And right now, he is struggling to protect the football. He's got to do his job, and part of his job is taking care of the football.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's the and you know this better than in that league. Turnovers are golden, whether good or bad. If you're on offensive defense, they are golden. Talk about a guy again, the guy you know, and you've coached with Todd Bowles. I mean, what a job he did, and he's done getting this Buccaneer team off to a 2-0 start. Humongous win in Detroit where nobody thought they could go win. Dan Campbell, again, your special teams background as well. You saw Dan Campbell botch the end of the first half there a little bit with the time management and getting the offense on the field and all that, and in the kicking game on the field. Just talk about working for Coach Bowles and just the mindset he instills with his team. Again, known for the blitzing and all that, but I think he's really matured the last couple of years as a head coach.
Well, Todd has learned from one of the best head coaches I've been around, Bruce Arians. So Todd's gonna do exactly what he needs to do right out of the Bruce Arians playbook. That's Tampa. It looks like Bruce Arians. Like Tampa is still playing Bruce Arians football right now, and I really like it. Bruce is probably the best situational coach that I've been around. He doesn't get all the credit that he deserves, but we practice situational football all the time. Like every day, every Saturday, every Friday, you name it, we were always doing something situationally. So that's what I see in Todd Bowles now. Like you said, he's matured as a head coach. He has a good pulse of that team. Defense is playing lights out. And Baker Mayfield is doing an unbelievable job of taking care of the football, protecting the football. And Baker's mentality, you can see the guys on offense rally around his mentality. I really like what they're doing. I think they're going to be fun to watch. I can't wait to see Tampa and New Orleans play 2 times a year this year. I think that's going to be an exciting game, one in New Orleans, one in Tampa. I'm really excited to see what happens. And I think both of those teams could really make the playoffs.
All right, listen to Anthony Blevins, former NFL coach. We're talking all some storylines NFL through 2 weeks, coaching decisions, quarterback decisions. Let's go. Let's go down to Miami, the Tua Tagovailoa situation. Obviously, we saw Thursday what happened. Tua is the ultimately going to be the one to have to make the decision of when he gets healthy, as far as when he'll play. I don't think you're going to see him for probably minimum 6 to 8 weeks, even if he's healthy in 3 weeks. I think they're going to really, really take this one slow. When you're dealing with a guy, again, as a coach, as kind of the guy that deals with somebody every day, when you know a guy's going through a tough injury situation, how do you as the coach kind of help him work through that mentally? Maybe situation where it's concussion related, where it might be a career ender, where he's thinking about his future. How do you talk to a guy and say, hey man, you really need to take this very seriously and not just, I mean, how do you talk through a situation like what Tua is going through, maybe with a guy that you've coached?
Well, I think you really talk to him on a very personal level. Away from football, this decision has nothing to do with football. It has to do with your livelihood after football. It has to do with your vision of how you want to play with your kids, how you want to be remembered, how you want to remember the game. How does your family feel? So in this situation, you want to get with Tua, get with his family, and help him make the best decision possible for himself. It's not about the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins should be the last of his concerns. Money,
He's gotten
things
paid.
like
He's
that
he's
should be
got
the
enough
last of
money.
his
If he can
concern.
quit tomorrow, he got a big payday. You deal with guys that maybe on the back end of a roster, maybe they haven't had that big payday. That boy, they need that. This is their one time in life to strike it rich. Those are the tougher decisions when a guy's maybe not at the level of a Tua to where he's a second, third year guy is going through some issues physically, and that's the kind of decision that are probably the toughest, right?
Correct. But I still think it still comes down to livelihood after the game, because at some point all of us have had to walk away from the game. There's very few people that get to end it on their terms. There are very few John Elways that get to walk off
Yep.
and win a Super Bowl and walk off into the sunset. Peyton Manning wins a Super Bowl, walks off into the sunset.
That's right.
There's very few times that that happens to people. The game usually dictates that this is it. When you can't get out of bed in the morning, you're so sore that you can't move. You're so sore that you can't practice till Friday. Like
Can't play with your
your
kids. You
livelihood
can't mess
has
around
to
with your
take
kids at the
precedence.
house. You can't
Yeah,
do those kind of things. You can't take your wife out on a date because you can't
yeah,
move around, things like that, right?
correct. And so my heart goes out to Tua in this situation, because I know it's ultimately a difficult decision. Because as football players, we've always been taught: are you hurt or are you injured? Can you play through the pain? And you always put your brothers, your teammates, you put them first in a lot of situations. This is a time where Tua has to put himself first. He has to put his family first. He has to get with his medical doctors, his medical team, get all the information. What can another concussion do to me?
Right.
Because he hasn't had, you know, average concussions, so to say. I don't even know if that's a term. Like, he's had concussions. Cincinnati last year, he was carried off on a backboard. This year, you can see his hands spazzing
Uh-huh.
as he's laying on the turf. A couple of years ago, same deal happened where he gets up off the ground and all of a sudden he's stumbling back to the ground.
Right.
And he continues to play in that game.
Right.
So he has to get with his medical team, ask those right questions, ask those hard questions, and say, you know what, enough's enough, or I think I got one more year in me. But he went on IR yesterday, so it'll be at least 4 weeks before you see him. And I really think, in my personal opinion, for what it's worth, he should be out the rest of the year.
Right. No, that's a great point. I think again the Dolphins will be super cautious here to even give him any opportunity to even tell them he wants to play again. But I'm with you. I think it'll be deep into the season. And again, it might have something to do with if the Dolphins are in the playoff hunt. Who knows what their record is down the road? I think that'll play into it a little bit as well.
But
All right.
but even with that, like, there's the Guardian cap. Why is he not wearing a Guardian cap?
Right.
Why isn't it mandated by Mike McDaniel, Stephen Ross, the medical team down in Miami, that this is a guy that's had multiple concussions? You're going to wear the Guardian cap, whether you like it or you don't. This is for your protection. You're going to wear it. And I use that as an example of offensive linemen. They're always made to wear knee braces, and they hate them. They absolutely hate them. But in order to practice, in order to play in the games, you're going to wear your knee brace, and it's protection for them.
For
Keep them from
them.
getting rolled up on. Same thing with Tua. This is mandated. If you're going to come out to practice, if you're going to come out to a game and play in a game, you're going to wear the Guardian cap, whether you like it or you don't.
And for those that don't know, the NFL has instituted this new Guardian cap, which goes on top of the helmet. It's now optional that players could wear it in a game. Before it was just a training camp, kind of a practice deal. Now
Mm-hmm.
they can actually wear them in the game if they choose to. You've
Mm-hmm.
seen a couple guys around the league that are doing it, but again, I think you'll see more and more guys. And you're right, Y2 is not wearing that. And the other thing, and again, it's hard to say this in the moment. What is Tua trying to run through Damar Hamlin for? Dive at his ankles with the ball. I mean, this was 1,000% on Tua. You can't blame anybody else for this situation. He could have easily gotten down, dove at his ankle to where you're not going to have the hit. I mean, that's just, and it's crazy that it was Damar Hamlin of all people that was
Yeah,
on the receiving end of the hit and kind of the end result there.
yeah. Very ironic that it was Demar, and I can only imagine that how Demar felt in that
Right.
situation, because just a year ago, 2 years ago, he was laying on the turf in the same situation, in a very dire situation,
Yes.
where it was truly life or death for him in that moment. So I can only imagine the PTSD, the trauma that he had during
Yep.
that moment of seeing a guy laying on the field, arms spazzing, hands spazzing, and just thinking, what's going on? What
What
is
could
this?
be? Yeah.
What could be exactly? So you know, like, you know, it's really tough in that situation, being either one, um, Tua and Demar.
All right, couple clock management issues, and I'll get you out of here. what is Mark Stoops in Georgia doing punting the ball against Georgia? You got a chance to beat the number one team in the country. It's 4th and 6 or 7, and you're on the Georgia 45. You have to go for it, don't you?
Absolutely. There is no way you give that ball back to Georgia. As physical as Georgia is, as well as they run the football, there is no way you give it back to them. You take all your chances. Nobody's giving you a shot to win anyway.
Yes.
It's at home. Go for the win. Like go, you got to.
You've played
You
great
don't,
for 58 minutes.
yes. And one decision like that at the end of the game, not that it cost them the game, but it put their chances to win in dire jeopardy at that particular point in time. Give your team every chance it has to win, and that was the decision that Mark Stoops needed to make, was to go for it, regardless if it was 4th and 6, 4th and 7, whatever it was. You go for it right there in that situation, in that moment, and you go out and you try to win that football game.
Nick Sirianni Monday night in Philadelphia. You know, you can run the clock down to about under a minute, kick the field goal, and go up 6, or do you throw the ball? Obviously, good play call, but obviously, when you throw the ball, there's always a chance that you drop the ball. And obviously, Saquon has had some issues catching balls. As you got, I think the stat was the most drops at the running back position since 2021.
Yeah.
I mean, good call, but when it doesn't work, you give Kirk Cousins, and basically, I think that saved their Atlanta season. I think Atlanta's season was potentially saved there. I don't know if they go 70 yards in a minute as opposed to a minute 45. Talk about the dilemma Sirianni had, and what'd you think of the call?
The call itself, I didn't mind. I really didn't mind it. But I will say this: 3rd and 3, they call a timeout. If you remember, before the timeout, Matthew Judon jumped off sides,
Right.
and he had enough time to get back in the neutral zone. When they jump off sides, and this is what I talk about situational football, Philly should have jumped. They got a free 5 yards. It's game over.
Yep.
Atlanta had no timeouts. Philadelphia was not situationally aware of what was taking place at that particular point in time. So this loss is completely on Philadelphia. It's not all on Nick Sirianni, but it is completely on Philadelphia. The other thing I will say is you got one of the best running backs in football, who's averaging 4.3 yards at that particular point in time during the game. Hand it to him. You got the best O-line in football. Hand him the ball. And if at worst you get 4th and 1, you got the tush push if you want to go for it, and you end the game. They hadn't stopped the tush push in 3 years. Nobody has.
Right.
So at least get the 4th and 1, run the tush push, you go in the game, game's over.
And at worst, if you burn 40 more seconds and kick a field goal, you still are up. I mean, you still burn 40 seconds. That, as you know, in the last 2 minutes, 40 seconds is probably 4 to 5 plays less than
Correct.
Atlanta has to win the game at the end. And they have to score a touchdown to beat you.
And then also Philly, they play so much zone, loose zone.
Man,
like,
let's
get
last
after
possession on defense was woo.
Yeah, I mean, they went down the field in 5 plays.
Yeah.
It was like easy. It was bam, 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 bam. No pressure, no nothing. So I really don't understand what Philly was doing in that moment. But I do know if I'm going to give the ball to 26, I'm not going to throw it to him. I'm going to give it to him behind that offensive line. And at worst, I get the 4th and 1.
Or Hurts runs the ball, or you run an RPO with Hurts and Barkley, where one of the two guys keeps the ball and runs.
Correct. That's it. And game's over. Philly's 0-2. I mean 2-0, and Atlanta's 0-2. And there's nothing. We're not even having this discussion right now because that game, Philly controlled that game from start to finish. They beat them in every which way except for on the scoreboard at the end.
It's funny how Coach Belichick always says more teams lose games than teams win games. And those kind of decisions is what make you lose games.
And he's absolutely right. Teams lose games. In Atlanta, they got a gift wrap early Christmas present from the Eagles.
It might have saved their season because, I mean, there would have been fire alarms going off in Atlanta with Michael Penix sitting in the background, all that controversy, Kirk Cousins, all that. All right, last thing I'll get you out of here with. You're in the Dallas area. Give me a thought or two about Arch Manning. We saw Arch play last week a good bit. Ewers is going to be out a couple weeks. What'd you think when you saw Arch? And I don't think there'll be a quarterback controversy, but it gives Texas confidence to know if they do need to play Arch, looks like he can do it.
Well, I'll say this about Arch. He's a lot faster than Peyton or Eli. He had a came in relief and had a phenomenal game. Now, obviously, it was against Texas San Antonio.
Right.
It would be interesting to see him against Oklahoma or
Georgia.
Georgia, something like that. But he came in and played phenomenal. He lived up to the hype. He played as well as he could possibly play in the 3 quarters that he was in the game. So I'm excited about where his future is, where he's going, and how well he's going to do at Texas. But I agree with you. I don't believe there's a quarterback controversy. You got Quinn Ewers, who's a Heisman hopeful at this particular point in time, and I think once he comes back, he's healthy. He gets right back into the quarterback seat, and he takes Texas to a national championship.
Well, you may have the most desperate game in the NFL this week where you're at in Dallas Sunday, Baltimore to Dallas. Baltimore, obviously, we know the desperation. You know what that Dallas market is like when the Cowboys get smoked at home like they've been getting crushed, like they got crushed last week. Anthony Blevins, keep up the great work, man. We'll see you in a couple weeks. We're gonna have Anthony on every 2 weeks throughout the football season to give you guys some great insight. More great insight this week about what happens 0-2 teams, injuries, and all that kind of great stuff that goes into these decisions throughout the National Football League. Anthony, have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Sounds good, my man. Take care.